GM, GA, GE, wherever you may be. We have some important stuff to talk about this week. We have the Yuga Land, the other side. The sale is going to be on Saturday at noon Eastern. So that's basically going to be what we're talking about today. Tune in. Tyler, welcome. We have a lot to cover today. Obviously, the Yuga Land sale is the big news of the weekend, but we'll talk about some other things here before what's going on in the market ahead of that sale. Uh, I'm not sure how to do it, or else I'd put up just a little third screen that's just following the ape price because it's been wild, especially this morning.
I mean, Lou, it's been absolute insanity already, and we're 2 days out. I have no clue what the next day and a half is going to be. It's going to be mania, and whenever we do get an announcement, it's just going to be absolutely, totally wild. But previously I was on the show. I thought Moonbirds weekend was our Super Bowl weekend. That might have just been the Pro Bowl. A lot of people are saying that was a warm up for what this Otherside sale is going to be like, and it's hard to say that's wrong. So this has got all the makings to be just a huge weekend for the NFT space.
Yeah, and obviously there's a few things that are involved with that on as far as how smooth the drop goes. Obviously, Moonbirds had a very smooth drop, so that helped with the process. But I think there's a lot of people that are sitting around and have money on the sidelines waiting for this event. There are people just trading ApeCoin. You could have it on Coinbase as well. I think the most recent number I saw is there's about 57,000 wallets through Etherscan that are holding ApeCoin right now. And that number is continually rising as people see the price rising. They don't want to miss out. So let's first talk a little about just the market in general right now. And it's been pretty steady since I want to say that's probably Moonbird's drop day, right? That you're showing right now, the 177 million. And it's been over 100 million pretty consistently. But now these last couple days, it's been dropping off as I think people are shifting their focus towards ape.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what we're seeing. But I think my surprise, and I was just looking at this chart again today, is how much higher the daily numbers are ahead of this huge launch. So again, we have Moonbird's Day here. The 7 days leading up to it, we were back down in the $70 million a day range, and like everyone had super tightened up. I mean, that's not what we're seeing. The daily average was 130 million per day, every day this week, really until the last two, right, where we came in at 108, and then today, whatever we're going to end up at, we'll probably do 100 million or so today. So I think that's been my surprise. And overall, most of the blue chips, the top end PFP sets have held up just fine. If we look at the board, we've seen some slight declines, like Moonbirds is down a little bit, but I think that's somewhat to be expected, right? After a huge run up.
A little. It got down to what, 25, 26?
No, today was actually a surprising day for the birds. We had been kind of slowly dropping all week on much lower buy pressure, which still relatively, it was still like 1,000 to 2,000 ETH traded per week, which is great for a normal set, but we're coming from 10,000 ETH a day, so it felt quiet. But yeah, it was sales in the 25s and 26s this morning. But what was interesting was the listings had finally stopped going down. So the listings had been kind of holding around 3.50, 3.5%, give or take a few. Well, now it's down near 2%. So I don't know if just everyone who was in there just for a swing trade, or everyone who wanted to sell for the other side has now done it for the most part. And it definitely feels like some sell pressure has removed, and now it's back to 30. So I thought that was interesting. I personally thought we would continue to trend down until Saturday.
Yeah, and it's somewhat interesting to put them side by side, where today ApeCoin is rising, as I think there's been a few different tweets out there, some of them talking about the number of wallets that have X amount of ape, how many people still need ape. And I think there's just also some more traditional DeFi traders that are coming in and trying to buy in and think, and maybe they have the target of $25 to sell this at, but everyone knows that this is needed for Saturday. So I think that's why we're seeing some of these mostly green as far as the bars go, because people at this point are afraid to sell now and then not have enough on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, how ridiculous is this price chart here? And I know we're going to do a deeper dive later in the show on this action, but it's a combination of people who waited till the last minute to prepare for the launch. The info on the KYC being a limiter, and then people who are swing trading, and then people who are just FOMOing in. Like a lot of people wanted to wait for the official announcement on the mechanics of the mint, and we don't have those yet. A lot of people were hoping to wait until we had those, and they were like, "This is going up too fast, too soon. I don't want to. I want a seat on the rocket, versus just being on the ground." So I think it's a combination of all that, but it is a crazy, crazy chart.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely something. I just want to quickly go back before we get too deep
Yeah.
into ApeCoin. There's a couple other of these projects from this week that most of this is not new projects, but I wanted to touch on VFriends 2 and
Mhm.
Ragnarok, because those were basically the big reveals so far this week that have created a lot of that volume that we see on OpenSea. So, what's your thoughts on those two? Let's start with the VFriends Series 2, which it was trading a little earlier um, in the week and some last week, but now that it's revealed, it's still holding at this 0.87 floor. And it I'm pretty sure they're all technically one of ones, but there's different rarities as far as the character involved, and some of the rarities are trading much higher. So, what are your takes on the V Friends Series 2?
Yeah, it definitely feels like Gary V and V Friends kind of got overshadowed in the last few weeks by Kevin Rose and Moonbirds, and now of course Yuga and the Otherside. But I mean, taking a look at the macro numbers, 14,000 ETH traded in the last week. I mean, that's a ton. That's a huge amount of volume. Over 10,000 sales. The floor we just saw it like 0.88 or so. It had gotten to like 1.1, 1.2 pre-reveal, and now essentially the rare lotto was priced in, and now it's out essentially
Yeah.
of the price. And it is also so interesting how efficiently priced these sets are now from pre-reveal to post-reveal. They almost all drop based on the amount of the rare lotto if they don't just take off. But we've seen some high end sales, right? So I've got this filtered now by the highest last sale in the 42, 35, 35, 25. So I think Gary would consider this a pretty successful reveal
Yeah.
and launch, right? This is a huge set, 49,000 of these. They're holding almost a 1 ETH price. Everyone who minted is up. So overall, I think it's been a good month for the VFriends
Yeah.
project.
And I would note that a bulk of these that you're showing here, those emerald ones, were put up to an auction that ended last night, and yeah, that was one of the, I think, spectaculars. That's what they're calling them. They had like bubblegum, and a lot of them are similar in the Vayner Sports Pass as well. But it's
Got it.
basically those emeralds, the animated ones, and then these black cats are pretty much the high end. Like if you won that rare lotto, those are what you got. But I think the other big thing with these, and why I think there's a little more not necessarily hype, but a little more action with them, is the artwork is better than the original V Friends. We joke a little about it, but that was very basic. Like he was just drawing on pieces of paper kind of art. Now they upped it to more of this cartoon, but like I think it's a family friendly art. I think that's part of what he's doing. It seems like they've hinted at the idea of children's shows and other stuff involving more, another generation of NFT holder. So, do you think that the artwork helped with this? Because personally, I think the artwork is just far and away better than the original V Friends one.
It definitely is, and I'll be honest. I've been kind of surprised at the price action on these and how well they've done, especially because, as I understand it, Gary has come out and said, don't expect a whole lot of utility from this set. And if you want utility, go look at the Vayner Sports Pass. And he views VFriends 1 as more of the utility token in his set as opposed to 2. Of course, there's probably speculation that he's under promising to over deliver in the future, and that's how everyone always over analyzes projects in the NFT space. So I've been a little surprised at the volume, at the price of these, given like no real promises of utility. I mean, and they're also 2x Vayner Sports Pass with 4x the supply, 4.5x the supply, or 3x rather. So I think that's been surprising to me, but clearly there's something that folks are drawn to. Everyone in this market does like to bet on founders, and of course Gary Vee is one of the best. And clearly they didn't just rush this out. The artwork is definitely better, so I'm sure that's a part of it.
Yeah, and then the other one that I want to talk about is the Ragnarok meta. So this comes a little more from the crypto Twitter side of things, but Ragnarok meta, they did their phase 1 of the drop yesterday, I guess just midday, and it sold out basically instantly. I went to set up a transaction, and there was 200 pending, and then there's 1,000 pending, 3,000 pending, and it flew. Heavy demand. They did the first 3,900, so there's still another about 3,600 of these in that collection to be had. But they're Ronins, and it's going to be part of an RPG role playing game. It was a cool little website, as they're showing right now. That image,
Mm-hmm.
that's how they did the anti-bot. You had to basically kill that dragon with, I think it was 4 clicks, but that was a cool little feature. I think they had cool pets was probably the last time I saw something like that, but I think that's a good way to sort of control against these bots. But plenty of price action after. So what's your thoughts on this one? Because I think personally, I was somewhat scared to go in. It was a 0.77 starting of the Dutch auction, and it obviously sold out right there. But now the floor is over 2, and it seems like as a missed opportunity. But why do you think that this turned out so well, even with people trying to hold money for this Saturday Ape coin?
Yeah, this has been one of the surprises of the week. So I do a weekly preview. We do a weekly preview show on Monday. This wasn't even on my radar. I saw DZ, talking about the slaying the monster mechanic, I think on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, some folks were like, "Hey, this is going to mint in an hour," and then realized, "Hey, this has got 200,000 followers on Twitter. This is going to be pretty heavily anticipated." I watched the mint sell out in minutes. I didn't mint any, and then I saw the immediate action on secondary. So I did jump in a bit there. It's clear. I mean, this has been one of the highest volume sets of the last 2 days. I was a little so this ran all the way up to 2.9 yesterday. It was some wild action. So it ran up to like 1.8. It finally paused, kind of fell back to 1.5. Next thing I knew, it was 2.2, 2.4, 2.9, and then it kind of came back to earth a little bit. We just got the next wave of supply in. So now there's 6,000 out in the set, and it's back to 2.4. So it's holding a really, really high floor. I think people are comparing this to Azuki. That's the comparison analogy that I've been seeing the most. And if you look at the art and some of the images, you can definitely see it. They had a really well optimized contract. So folks they used the 721A. No one really lost gas. They had the innovative mint with the monster slaying. So I think people like that. And they like the roadmap with a token promised for later this year, as well as the game. So I think that's the positives that people have seen in this one. I think my personal concern on this is it feels a little too Azuki like to me,
Art
uh,
wise.
art wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so clearly, like Azuki's is not working on the game, at least right now. This is a game, so right there, there's a foundational difference. But a lot of people have been commenting on the art and how much they like the art. It feels almost like a derivative, like some of the same primary rare traits are being used. The fireballs, like the electricity balls, all that. So I don't know that's one concern I've got, but kind of hard to argue with the market reaction here in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and similar to you, I hadn't really heard about this. I had heard of it in passing. I honestly thought it was on a different chain and just figured I'd pass. I thought it was maybe on whether it was Treasure, a game that was going to be over in Treasure, or like Polygon or something like that. And originally just assumed I was going to pass. But I saw some of the stuff on the game. What was interesting is once I saw this artwork, like the actual PFP, I thought it was going to be pixelated art. This is somewhat of a mix of the two. I've seen some of their potential teasers, and it's a mix of pixel and not. And in the game, it's going to be more pixelated art, similar to what you're seeing there in the screen from the minting itself. So a lot of people are interested in this style of game. It reminds me a lot of like Treeverse as well, and it seems like it has a decent amount of backing. I'm also just on the side this week of trying not to spend on things just to be prepared for this ape sale. So I think in a different week, I would have been super on board with this. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't find out of it until Monday night on our NGMI screen. But yeah, it seems like so far it's been well. And in this environment, I think being over 2 ETH and over twice the mint is pretty strong 3 days before the ape
Yeah.
sale.
No, absolutely. I mean, at this point, essentially everyone who's bought is up. Everyone who's minted is up. So that's a really good sign. I had shared the same concern really about getting into anything new ahead of Saturday. I thought would just be hot potato and really risky. But this has proved out, right? So, hats off to anyone involved. I think I'll be curious how it maintains over the next few weeks. But I know a lot of people are also looking hard at this project and waiting until post Otherside sale. So like, the volume could pick up Sunday, Monday, next week here as people are like, okay, what's next? This will certainly be one in the consideration.
Yeah. So this is one that in that like 2 to 3 range,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we see next week. This is one of those that people turn to with whether they had money ready for ape, didn't fire at it, or earned money from ape. I can see that because it's going to be in that pre-reveal phase. Um, I don't. Did you see when the reveal is set for? I didn't see that, but I'm
Then
assuming if it's next week or if they're going to wait for the final. What do they have, about 1,700 or so
right.
remaining to mint? I'm not sure if that's going to be part of it, but this is definitely one to keep your eye on, I'd say. There's a lot of other stuff in that 2 ETH range, and one thing we've talked about in the past is it seems like the current state of NFT market is looking at more recent stuff to put their money towards versus teams that have been long-term building at 2 ETH. I think a lot of people are going to look at something like this Ragnarok that's already been short-term successful.
Yeah.
So, anything else on that?
No, I think I'm good to
Oh,
move on.
okay. And then the other big news that sort of news, I don't know if you can consider it news or not, but was this Meebits got a little pump from Goran Goner, who is obviously one of the co-founders of Bored Ape Yacht Club and part of Yuga Labs. He basically tweeted this out and said, took a week off and just kept writing down ideas of what to do with Meebits regarding utility. So Meebits went from around 4.5, I want to say, ETH up towards 7 in the span of like an hour. So what's your thought on this? Do you think that there's something to this long term? I know that you're someone that has followed Meebits in the past. Is this something that Meebits people were just waiting for something like this to unload and just dump all of their Meebits off once they got a pump like this, or do you think this could be something part of Otherside?
No, I don't think anyone who's held their Meebits bag this long is really looking for an exit pump right now. I'm laughing. So I'm looking at the very first response tweet from King Blackboard, who writes Meebits FOMO buys in 3, 2, 1 after
Him?
this tweet, and he was spot on. So like you said, the floor went from 4, it touched 7, went over 7 for a bit. Now it's still in the 6s, which is up 50% from where Meebits were, before the Yuga takeover news. What does this mean for the future of Meebits? I think you can only be excited about this as a Meebits owner. I think in general, Meebits are fun. I think they're more fun than punks in a lot of ways. That was something that always drew me to them early on. When I started shopping for Meebits, it was very fun to look through the traits and actually go shopping. And I think that's always a good sign for a set if you have fun when you go through and pick out ones that you like. Now there's potential utility, and they're backed by the number one team in the NFT space. So, if there was ever any reason to like this set, you have to like them more right now. As for the short-term price action, anytime there is any rumor or announcement at this point, the market is so FOMO-driven that everything just runs, and then it comes back down. But if you're lucky, it comes down less than where you started at, so you're up a little
Yeah.
bit. I think long term, these are definitely a good play. It seems like the Yuga team is looking for ways to incorporate them,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be ways away, right? Like we're not going to expect. I wouldn't expect anything from Meebits this weekend. On the other side, I wouldn't expect any special utility next month. I think this is still 3 to 6 months away. So it's one of those things where you have to balance your hyper short term, trading and sets that you're interested in versus the longer term plays. But longer term, I think the case for Mimas is getting more bullish.
Right. Like the idea of you also have to be willing to hold a 6 ETH bag in order to make the trade, unless you're
Mm-hmm.
trading it at 5 to sell it at 6. And some people are into it and do stuff that way. But basically what his tweet is saying is there's going to be something eventually. And what we've learned with a lot of this stuff is the day to decide what that is, whatever the price of Meebits is, will probably go up. So it's always funny when things like this. I feel like Gordon is now one of those that when he tweets, it creates market action. He had there was a funny I forget which day it was. I think it was when there was that 600 ape Dutch auction with the whitelist stuff tweet
Mm-hmm.
where people ran to the BAYC Discord and Gordon was in there wondering if mushrooms and garlic were considered vegetables. And it was just a funny thing that I saw someone posted on Twitter, like, this is the current state of BAYC Discord. But there's going to be a lot of stuff like this where it's going to create market reaction. So I think he's an important person to follow for stuff like that. There could be something short term. We don't know. We still don't have all of the details yet. This is going to be something that I think will transition well into our discussion on the drop itself. But what if they do announce something tomorrow that Meebits, Punks, if those, like, say, Toads and the other stuff that was on that original whitelist mint, what if they came out and said they get early access to mint or 50 ape off when they mint if you own a Meebit? Like, there could be stuff like that in the short term. We just don't know. That's all speculation stuff. I'm not trying to tell people that that's how you should prepare it, but I just think if you own a Meebit right now, I wouldn't exactly be trying to dump it either until after we find out all the details of this sale this weekend.
Yeah, of course. I agree with you there. And then the other piece is if you think Yuga is going to be able to launch a working metaverse in the near future, Meebits are metaverse ready. So like the one thing that the Larva Labs did for Meebits before they turned them all over is they took care of all that behind the scenes, like the 3D modeling and getting them ready for virtual worlds. So if there's that's why a lot of people pointed to how Meebits made sense for Yuga to pick up because they were easy plug and play into their metaverse. So I would also consider that before just selling anything else.
Yeah, that's a very good point where it almost makes more sense that Meebits has the connection than Punks
I would
because of
agree.
what you just said with the metaverse. I want to take this question while we're on the topic of current market. Packtrip is saying, what are some point 0.1 to point 0.5 ETH projects you think has good potential? So the first way that I would answer that question is I feel like we've gained a lot more of these in the past couple weeks as people are moving more towards this blue chip meta. Uh, do you have any takes on this as far as this sub half ETH range? Because as of right now, to get in on a plot of ape, I mean, it's trending a lot more towards minting at over 1 ETH worth. So, do you think there's anything in this lower end range that has good potential, or is it more wait a little bit? That could also be an answer. So, what's your thoughts to this question?
Yeah, and this is always the $1,000,000 question, especially for those who are kind of getting into the game. And this is where you can get the highest ROI returns. Um, Certainly, like this market, this bull cycle has showed us how everyone is gravitating towards the high end sets, and there is a notable difference in how the top tier sets have performed versus the bottom end. So anything below one, below zero point 0.5 is going to be incredibly risky right now. It's going to be in that death zone where as soon as liquidity dries up, like you might not even be able to get zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.2 for your NFTs. Um, so I guess I'd like to kind of table this question and maybe come back with a little bit more of a formal list because I do have a few ideas, but they would take a little while
Yeah.
uh, to really go through. I mean, I just scrolled down the whole board of the top movers. So below 0.5 ETH, you've got you by BFF. I heard a decent amount of chatter on that product, but I didn't really look into it super closely. Um, and there's really not that much else. Toxic Skulls Club, don't know a ton about that one. Men's is a new one that came out at 0.1. It's already at 0.07, so down 30% below Met. So it's definitely a risky category. I'd say
Yeah.
let's let the dust settle on how the land sale goes, get a sense for how much liquidity is either taken out or given back into the market, and then we'll pick that one back up.
Yeah, because I guess another way that I would answer that question is in the past when we've had these bull markets is when stuff in that range will catch some fire. It's harder to find out which it is. I think going off of the point that I made earlier, that might just be new stuff. Like it's hard. There's a lot of things in that sub half ETH range, such as like the crypto goons. Smiles are in that range now, where they already have a pretty decent community of people who are already in on the project. And then Penelope's Country Club is having their companion 2 drop in the next couple days. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that range. It's just so much more saturated. It's hard to pick and choose out of it. I like your answer though, where I think I'm on the same page. Where right now I'm not really trying to buy anything, uh, especially in that range, where maybe if it's less liquid, um, half an ETH right now is what, about 88 or so? I forget what the exact number is, but it's around there. So it's kind of like I personally would rather buy ApeCoin at half an ETH. That's what I would personally do, I think, in that
Two more,
range.
two more real quick thoughts on it. So one below that range, honestly, I would recommend just grinding whitelists. Right, there are some
Yeah.
great whitelist opportunities. Like Black Paris was 0.2. That was a raffle you could enter. I think Imaginary Ones, even though like that product hasn't performed super well, it's still up well over Mint. The Mint was 0.2.
Yeah.
Right, so that's
And their
the best
public mint was point
opportunities.
0.5, I
Okay.
believe, which or point 0.6, but it's now around point 0.8. So that one still would have been successful. if you minted.
And then my hot take under 1 ETH, and this was my last talking point on the project
Yeah.
movers, was the Artifact skin vials. So the Artifact team announced that you will be able to evolve the skins. There's going to be an evolution component of these. So there's only going to be 20,000 Evo 1s, and then there's going to be evolution. So they're going to turn into Evo 2s. So it's deflationary. As soon as they made this announcement, the skins ran all the way up to like 1.4 or 1.8, and have since come back down just because of this hot potato market. But it's the cheapest entry right now into the Artifact ecosystem and everything monolith. So I actually think that's a great play. Then it enables you to kind of start working your way up to the crypto kicks, and then maybe even monolith 2 to catch into the next wave. So that's something I would take a look at. And if we take a look at how they did this week, I mean, monolith did 10,000 ETH. Monolith 2 did 3,800. The crypto kicks 3,700. Skin vials 36. So combined, they did about 20,000. So a pretty big chunk of the market.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. I think the idea of this blue chip meta, some of the easier, lower entry points into the blue chips, skin vial is probably the cheapest of all of them right now. Obviously, there's going to be 20,000 of them total, right? There's only 7,800 now, but yeah, I agree with that take. Now, let's sort of shift, and probably for like the rest of the show, we're going to be talking a little about ApeCoin, Otherside. Haven't really found too much more information besides this tweet from since we were on the show on Monday. Basically, what the tweet said, which we already knew, was it's going to start at noon Eastern on Saturday. Couple things that they added: you had to KYC, so the know your customer that had a 2-week period or so to enter. They didn't give the details on. That's the reason why, to be able to participate in this drop. We don't have exact details why, but that's what it is. That's like the first layer to the whitelist. Then what they're going to have is it's going to be all in ApeCoin. So if you didn't have ApeCoin, that's why ApeCoin price has risen. Do you remember what the price was before this tweet? I think it was around 15, maybe.
So this was on the 25th, right? So yeah, it was sitting between, it was right around 17. It dipped into the 16s probably.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts? Just let's first go off of what this tweet said. Is there anything super surprising to you? Is there anything that you think when you read this, they're doing wrong, perhaps?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from the thread was the KYC component, because right there we have a very limited set of a limited pool of buyers, and whenever there is a limiter, it increases the secondary demand. So as soon as we found out this important detail, it already started the wheels turning for this is going to be a potential, 2x or a play that's going to have some upside because of the scarcity they enforced here. So I think that was a surprise. I knew the whole time it was going to be an ApeCoin. I never wavered from that. I know that was a point of hot debate in the community if it was going to be an ETH or ApeCoin or both. But that's another really important detail. And of course, that's been driving the price action we've seen. It's going to be Dutch auction. We don't know much else about that. So what's interesting is they've got a tweet down this thread that says the very end, check back here on 4:30 for details. So a lot of us have been speculating, when's the next announcement going to come? When's the next announcement going to come? Because on the Dutch auction tweet, they say that'll be announced later this week. So folks like me are like, oh, does that mean Thursday? Does it mean Friday? There's a good chance we won't know the Dutch auction mechanics until the 30th, Saturday morning, which is really going to tighten the window for people to react, make moves, either choose to unload some of their position, add to their position, which very likely could be on purpose from the Yuga team. So I thought that was really interesting. I was definitely in the camp where I thought we would get an announcement by now. Now I'm kind of thinking we're not going to get anything before Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of people are mad about this. I think it probably was in their best interest not to give a number because I think that also creates very specific market demand. If you say, "Oh, Dutch auction starts at 500 ape," then you you might get 50,000 people buying exactly 500 ape. There's going to be different um, mechanics to this, which a lot of people have looked at the test net contracts, and those have said it's going to be a wallet max of 45 of these plots. Or, that in there, I believe it started at 300 ETH or 308, sorry. Um, but right now, at this moment in time, like 300 ape is over like $7,000, which that's over 2 ETH. And originally people were planning 1 ETH. And so I think that's what also has driven some of this later action in price is people are starting to realize, oh, do I have enough? And if not, then what's going to happen? Are those people going to dump the coin? And there's just a lot going on with the coin itself. But I think one piece of that is the pseudo burning of the token. I'm not sure how you would word it, but since they're going to lock the tokens up that they generated from this sale for a year, then that's a lot of tokens that come out of that supply, which might keep the price of it up for a little bit as well. So, do you think the idea of them doing this all in ApeCoin was a good one?
I do. I mean, from the beginning, they said that the other side is powered by ApeCoin. And
Yeah.
of course, everyone speculated all their theories. And then what we've got is this is an auction priced in ApeCoin. And ApeCoin is going to be the currency of this world, the other side, everything that Yuga does going forward. I tweeted about this, and we can get into speculation now or down the road. But my hot take is I think not only will the primary sale be in Ape, I think there is a good chance, not 100%, that secondary will also be Ape only. And one of the drivers for that is I think you were getting there. The Yuga team doesn't want to see the Ape coin just totally dump off a cliff after the sale on Saturday. And while, of course, 10 to 15% of the supply is going to be locked, that's bullish from a supply perspective. But the question is, what's going to be demand for the coin? And of course, there's going to be your portion of BAYC, MAYC owners who are just going to hold the coin because they hold everything because that's worked for them. But what about everyone else? What about all the traders? What will be the incentive for anyone to hold this coin after Saturday? And I think whenever we do get the details on how the Dutch auction is going to work, we will also get that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the issue for some people. It's just people don't know and they don't like that they don't know. But I do think it's probably in Yuga's best interest not to specifically say it too far in advance. I've been of the thought that they're waiting for 24 hours in advance. So either tonight, they do usually make announcements so at night. It seems around like 8 p.m. or so, but I could see it being early tomorrow. And if it's not early tomorrow, they might, as you mentioned, just do it an hour or two before, like say 9 a.m. on Saturday is when they come out with that information on the specifics. Because all we have right now is that there's the website. The way that the Benji banana drop happened, I think is going to be very similar here, where you're going to go on the site and approve the ape first. So if
Mhm.
that is a thing, I would suggest to people that if that's part of it, just approve the ape as quickly as you can, whether or not you're buying at that exact time, because once this starts moving, gas is going to spike across anything that you're doing on Ethereum, probably. And that includes people that might have the strategy of selling ape before this. you want to sell it with enough time before gas spikes because it's going to cost you that much more paying gas to do the actual swaps. And so, to me, I think that's part of the game on Saturday is going to
Mhm.
be people are going to see, let's say it's at 200 ape and it starts moving, and you have 700 ape. So you're going to want to buy three, but then do you want to sell the other 100 ape back into ETH? I think there's going to be a lot of game theory like that. So I think it should be fun. Personally, I hope it happens relatively quick because I have just some other things I'm supposed to be doing on Saturday. But um, yeah, what's your thoughts on just like how you expect the mechanics and come say quarter of 12 on Saturday, what type of things do you think people can do to prepare for that?
Yeah, so your last question first to prepare, hey, make sure you've got ETH in your wallet along with the ape
Right.
to fees. And whether or not this is going to be a gas war is very dependent on the Dutch auction starting price. It's kind of hard to imagine a 70,000 NFT sellout be a gas war. But also, I want to be very clear. There's been a lot of speculation based on the leaked pitch deck. We don't even know if there's 70,000. Like, we don't know what the supply is. Um, so we're all doing our best to plan this out with the limited information that we do have. Um, Regarding the Dutch auction, I 100% think that they are going to peg this to an ETH value and not just an arbitrary ape number. So I think Yuga and the founders have a number in their head. They want land to be
Yeah.
one ETH, they want to be two ETH, or they want to be a Dutch auction starting at two, going down to one. Something along those lines. I think they're going to say that, and they're going to announce something that we will do the conversion 5 minutes before the sale, and that'll
Yeah.
be the number of ape that you need. There's been speculation on anywhere as high as 600 on the high end, which now is over $12,000.
Yeah.
It's close to 14,000, I think, um, which is over 4 ETH. And if it is 70,000 NFTs for sale at 4 ETH, 280,000 ETH being taken from the market, I think would have a very, very negative reaction. So to put it in perspective, Moonbirds did a 20,000 ETH primary sale. So even at 1 ETH, right, whatever that is in ape, and we'll get back to the math in a minute, they're talking about a 70,000 primary sale, 70,000 ETH. So that's 3.5 times what Moonbirds was just a few weeks ago. And that's on the lower end. So I tend to think it's going to be on the lower end, even with the Dutch auction. If we do the math, so 1 ETH in ape is what right now? Like 130 or something? It's crazy how much it's gone down.
Because the other part of it is ETH has gone down a little in price. So as as ape is going up, ETH has also come down, I don't know, 8 to 10% or so. Um, so that's been part of the ratio difference as well. And I'm sitting there and I was telling you this before the show, like if you had previously bought ape as the price is going up, that's almost more reason not to continue buying, uh, because that's potentially the price is going to go down of the Dutch auction number. Because originally, there was the 600 that came out as that tweet, but that was when ape was around $12.
Mhm.
So if we consider that's say pegged towards around $7,000, that's closer to around like 275 ETH or ape now, which is crazy to say, but yeah, it has doubled since that tweet. So to me, I'm personally thinking 300 as a start, and people are like, oh, 300 is, 3 ETH or whatever it ends up being. But in my opinion, I just think the start of the Dutch auction isn't that important of a number. To me, um, I think if they put it at 500, it could get fudded as cash grabby. But the thing is, you don't have to fire at 500. And the other side of it is funny, no pun intended, but I just think whatever it starts at, because of how many have to sell, it's not going to instantly sell out if it starts at a higher number anyway. But if it starts at a lower number, like if it started at 200, I could see that selling out very quickly. So that's the other piece to this that I was thinking was maybe they want to bump it up a little higher so that it doesn't just sell out right away and it's all out gas war. Do you think they're trying to prevent against the gas war?
It's tough. So like, there's so much game theory in Dutch auction prices too, right?
Yeah.
Because the benefit of setting a lower number is you get that instant sellout, or you're close to instant sellout, which typically means you you'll get a higher number than if you started the Dutch auction high. Then people start to sit on their hands. Once people start to sit on their hands, they get comfortable not hitting the buy button. That's when the prices end up lower than they might have alternatively ended up. Um, and I think all the founders know that. So it's tough. 300 is the number that keeps getting circulated around the most. Um, that's over 2 ETH. I certainly feel like that's reasonable. That's probably where my head is at right now. I don't think it's going to sell out on the gun at 300. I do think a lot of people will be ready to fire, and this is where the max really comes into play and is going to be incredibly important. So we actually we got some numbers yesterday from this corporate trash account. I actually posted some more detailed numbers just a few hours ago, but we'll just use these because they're clean. They took a breakdown of the 55,000 accounts that hold ape and essentially how much they have. 60% had less than 100 ape yesterday. So most likely won't even be able to participate. And this kind of goes into your your comment around people just speculating on the coin, just looking to trade it or whatnot. And then in the 100 to 400 range, then you've got your next 15%, fairly low. And then there's at the 1200 and over, you've got almost 10,000 wallets. So the folks who will be able to fire a bit heavier on this. On one hand, I felt like the idea of the other side was to expand the community, was to get more entrance into the Yuga world. But on the other side, if you want a fast sellout at highest price, you need the whales, and you need whales buying large quantities.
Yeah.
So I'm torn on how they're going to max this, or if they're going to max it. And typically on Dutch auctions, we don't see the maxes as much set, especially if they're set higher. So I don't think it's going to be a low max. I'll be pretty shocked if it's like a 3 max. I would actually be very concerned that the ape coin will dump a bit if it's a 3 max because of some of the whales who've accumulated positions that they won't be able to use now for land. On the flip side, I've seen as high as 45. 45 feels high. So my gut is somewhere in the 10 to 20 range would be a potential limiter if they do put it in place.
And there was a decent amount of market action from this tweet. It's another one that sort of pushed it, because I think there are people out there that were looking at it and thought, "Oh wow, there's that many people that have less than 100. Maybe I should buy into this. Maybe I'm not too out of the question here because I only have 208 or something, or have none yet. Now they know, oh, I probably need to get more than 100." And we have seen that there's about 58,000 now holders, and this is specific to Ethereum. This is the Etherscan numbers. You can pull them yourself. We've actually been tracking this on Lucky Trader. I'm quickly to show, but we now have this the NFT news page that we have are providing project updates for mostly anything that you're interested in as they come out, the announcements from the projects themselves. So we will obviously be updating this as all the news comes in. So be sure to check those out in general. But to go back to that tweet, oh, this is the other one. To go back to that point on corporate trash's tweet, There's so many people that have 100 or less. And the thing is, what if they announce that this number is over 200? Are all those people going to add another 100? Are all those people going to sell and be like, well, now I don't have enough ape and 100 ape is now $2,500? I think that's going to be the big thing because that's what really popped out to me here is, in my opinion, there are 40,000 of these 55,000 wallets on the screen. That's what, 70% or so, 73% of
70, yeah.
this right here. So if only 27% of the overall buyer pool are even going to be able to buy more than one, then that sort of goes on your point of the max minting idea, where if it's a low amount that the average buyer is able to get, that's going to slow it down a little bit,
Mhm.
just the selling in general. But as we know, in a lot of these things, once it starts running, it'll become a gas war, no matter what. Like Casper's mentioning that here with Adidas's drop, that it became a gas war.
Mhm.
Once, say it's 70,000, we still don't know the exact numbers, but say there's 70,000 of these plots that are getting sold. Once we get around that 50K are gone, people are going to start looking at their wallet, seeing if they can go mint one, if they can mint a couple. Like the last, say 20% of these are probably going to fly either way. And I believe on the test net, I'm not sure if they confirmed this yet, but I believe it's going to be a continuous drop in price.
Mm,
So with the
interesting.
continuous drop in price, there's less of a, ooh, in 2 minutes it's going to
Yeah.
drop 58 or anything. So do you think that part of it is going to help or hurt? Because people are going to probably want to jump ahead. That's part of the game theory. Jump a little ahead, pay less in gas.
Yeah, on our traditional Dutch auctions, I always think back to our art blocks days.
Yeah.
Is you have the 5 minute timer, you know when the next cliff is about to fall, and if you think it's going to sell out there, you jump it by 30 seconds to get your mint in, even if it means paying a little bit more because it guaranteed you'll get one. But man, I've never been in a Dutch auction with 70,000 supply. It's like we're
Right.
in such a new place with this. I mean, realistically, you don't have to start getting nervous at 10,000 mints or even 20,000. At 35,000, I'd start to be paying attention and getting a little nervous, especially with how fast they've been coming through. I
Yeah.
mean, if 35,000 come through in the first minute, well, you might be screwed already. Um, but if they're coming through over 20 minutes, then it's time to pay attention, but you've got some time. Right. And I don't think it's a perfect comparison to the Adidas because Adidas was open to the, or was Adidas a closed 70? Oh, it was actually,
Adidas
it
had,
was
there
closed.
was some whitelist part to it. And then the public wasn't the full 20,000. The public was, I don't know, like 6,000 or something, but instantly sold. But I think, um, I don't know. It's hard to like compare these. The mutant apes, we can somewhat compare. They started at 3 ETH and was the continuous down. I think it ended around 2.8. But it became, once it was around 7,000-8,000 of them, it became a gas war. I think the one that I got was in like 9,500 or something. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you almost have to make the decision before you make the decision, if that makes sense. It's like, all right, I'm going to fire once I see that this many have been minted or there's this many pending. Like people watch pendings a lot with
Mm-hmm.
these, but yeah, who knows? They might have some sort of setup where certain people can mint at certain times or different blocks. Like we don't know. Something that Board Ape Yacht Club has done a lot of is when they do big things like this, there's some sort of innovation to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they set something up that we haven't seen before. Um, and hopefully they give a little more clarity on that within the next like 24 hours or so. But I'm not sure, as you mentioned before, like they might just be waiting. Do you think that's bad for them? Is it a bad look at all?
I personally don't like it, right? I think, but this is a part of their brand. Like they don't give you time to prepare. They are not great at the comms, the communications.
Yeah.
It's not open communication. It's a lot of mystery and guessing, but it creates peak FOMO and hype, and it's worked for them so far. Um, so even just talking through it now, I don't think we're gonna get a whole lot more information here before Saturday. Um,
Then there's one other thing that I saw. I don't know if you saw this one, but um, there's potentially 15,000 of these that are also off to the side. Have you
hmm.
heard this rumor where like saved for VCs or people that were funding in that original round, where there might only be 55,000 of these plots available. Um, there's, I think there is a potential that the 70,000 number that we've been talking about is actually only, well, we're going to do 20,000 on Saturday and then 20,000 that you didn't have to KYC on Sunday or something like that. Like, do you think maybe we could get a curveball like that as well? Because they're reading a lot of these tweets that are out there, and
Hmm.
probably part of not explaining anything yet is they can change it later on.
Yeah, and we also don't know how many are potentially given to BAYC and MAYC owners, right?
Yeah.
We're all holding to the 70,000 number because it was in a pitch deck, which they've already said was outdated and they want to refine. So I guess in a lot of ways, I'll be surprised if it's just purely the pitch deck comes through and there's not some kind of curveball. Um, but we've seen some of the tweets about how's BAYC and MAYC going to be rewarded? Above just the pure public, right? Are
Yeah.
they really just going to get one plot? I think I aligned to the theory that they're going to get some type of premier plots, either the best traits
Yeah.
or they're going to be like founders plots or closer to the center or something, versus the standard plots. I think that makes a lot of sense. I've seen the tweets that Bored Apes are going to get all 10,000 codas. I don't subscribe to that theory.
Yeah.
I feel like the public would push back pretty hard against that. There was a time to reward the Bored Ape owners, and they've already been rewarded pretty heavily. But giving them an NFT, which the market's already putting price tags of 10 ETH to 20 ETH on top of everything else, seems like a lot. And
Yeah.
I almost wonder, would it hurt the secondary buy pressure at this point? Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
buy your coda that you just got for free, right?
In the premium side of it as well. Like,
And it
if
hurts the land
if
value.
BAYC and MAYC are both getting a better piece of land than me, why am I firing at 3 ETH? I think, as you mentioned in the past, like, part of the reason why people are considering buying at 2, 3 ETH is the potential of getting a coda if they come out and that's not part of the potential of buying this land. That's another thing that's going to affect a price. But in general, I think that's also going to affect the want to buy. So these are just some things that I almost feel like they have to announce. I keep saying have to, but they really don't have to. They can do whatever they want. But I think it's probably in their best interest that they don't throw curveballs too late in there. They already did this KYC curveball, and they let people know in advance. I think part of that was people that failed. They allowed you to try to redo it as long as you attempted that first time. But yeah, I think price has been going up, up, up all day. Once they announce something, it's either going to create a big sell off if it's stuff that people don't like to hear, or it's just going to continue to go up.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we've been talking so much about the primary sale, and that's what everyone's focused on. It is unfortunate that we don't have more details on what secondary is going to be like. Um, but I think for those who didn't get KYC and maybe don't have huge ape bags, but have a decent ETH, I would say start to plan for some secondary action. So I think back to how the Moonbirds Mint happened, right? Like not that many folks won the raffle versus what the demand was. But where the money was made, at least in the short term, was for those who acted quickly on secondary, whether using their tools or if they were just looking at OpenSea and monitoring it. I think if you missed the mint because you didn't KYC, trying to understand the rarities how the quotas are set up, the different land types, land features as quickly as you can, and then trying to find high value spots that get listed near the floor is such a great play. And certainly that's something that I'll be doing on Saturday in that post mint window. It matters. Like whether or not this is going to be in their own marketplace, if it's going to be priced in ETH or ETH is such important details to understand here that it would be really nice if we had them here in advance. But
yeah,
I
that's
definitely
my
would
thought
say,
of why I don't think they're doing the market only in ape right away. I think that's something they have to prepare people for, I think.
I would tend to agree. And it's tough. I go back and forth on this so much. I think that's just the most obvious way to maintain the ape coin value.
Right.
Like, so if it's not a marketplace priced in ape, then they're going to have some very near term interaction or reason to use it, or I do think it's going to fall off fairly significantly. And Casper is saying he hopes secondary. He doesn't hope it's an ape, and I've seen that concern a lot. But here's my counter to that: is if you are ready to spend 2 ETH on secondary for a plot of land, I guess is the extra step to go to Uniswap and swap that 2 ETH to ape and then go make your buy, is that too much to prevent you from doing it? And that's a genuine question.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, it just seems like 30 extra seconds. Like, of course, I'm just going to go through and do that. But it's a very common sentiment, and it's probably would be one that if you're looking for reasons why they wouldn't price it in ape only because of that potential barrier, that would be a reason why they wouldn't do it.
Right. It's kind of like the barrier that a treasure has, where you have to buy stuff in Magic while you're in there. So, I think a lot of people are sitting around with ape and Ethereum. I don't think people are going all in on ape with that idea. And yeah, I think a lot of people would be underprepared for that, especially on the secondary. But down the road, eventually that could be something that they're planning on. We've talked in the past about the potential of having that with Coinbase, but a lot of that's still TBD. So yeah, I think we are still a lot up in the air, generally prepared. It's hard
If
to
we
say
could,
like prepare for the worst or anything.
maybe if we could just do a few minutes on bull and bear case. And I know we're
Okay.
getting over.
Yeah.
So I think OSF NFT, he put a nice thread out there. I'm not going to go through it in details, but I'm trying to find, there was a particular tweet here where he thinks it's going anywhere from 3 to 10x on secondary. And I think that's incredibly high. I'm definitely on the lower end of that from a return standpoint. But if we think about what could make this, that profitable, and we just saw it happen with Moonbirds, right? Like Moonbirds was 2.5. It came out of the gate anywhere 7 to 10 and then rocketed to 30. And people are calling that a warm up for this, right? So the bull case is it's a bet on the best team in NFTs with Yuga. It's the lowest entry into their project. And they've hinted at that this is essentially the future of where they're going, and the world is going to begin here. The other bet is that outside money, institutional money, is going to be pumped into this and only on the secondary, assuming that they're not getting those KYC mint spots, that they're going to be forced to buy on the secondary. Again, this is anecdotal, but it sure feels like the action that we saw 2 weeks ago for Moonbirds was outside money and not just NFT ecosystem. And people absolutely are saying the same thing here, that, Yuga, their VCs, that they're lining up funds and other outside money to come into this. And this feels like a lower risk play for those funds. So that makes sense to me. And I'm in the camp that will happen. So that's the bull case. That all makes sense. And I think we've seen plenty of people talking about that. I still think the bear case is the supply. And putting all the unknowns, if we assume this is 100K plots of land, right? Decentraland, A few of these other crypto voxels, they had the huge plot sizes, right? But we've never seen a PFP of a size like this make these types of leaps and bounds. So
Yeah.
if you think about Moonbirds on their first day did 50,000 ETH and it set the record for daily revenue. 50,000 ETH applied to 100,000 supply is only 0.5 per NFT. So let's say it gets applied to only 10% of the supply. That's enough to make 5 ETH purchases of 10,000 of the plots of land, which is just 10%. And that would set the record for daily revenue. So like if you start to think about that, what's it really going to take to sell these plots of land for 5 ETH or higher?
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of ETH, unprecedented levels of ETH. So, I'm really focused on this. I'm bullish on it and everything Yuga does, but I also want to temper some excitement a little bit and just kind of put those numbers out into people's head. Of course, there's other factors like diamond handing and people just refusing to list above, which could also, impact this in a lot of ways. But that's just something that's on my radar and a bit of a concern.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest concern for me is I don't think this is a smash play. Like, yes, I'll be trying to participate, but a lot of factors are involved, like what the price you're getting in on. If the price of this is 300 ape, there's a lot less upside buying there, and then you question, we don't even know what the plots are for in a lot of ways. So you don't know if you're going to be able to generate 300 ape back. So there's so many questions without having more information that a lot could go wrong with this as far as like how bullish people are. It's so hyped. It's the hypest thing we've had in NFTs like ever. Like there's not really other ways to say it. Like people have been waiting for this ever since it got brought up. And it's just been months and months of people prepping for this day. And it's kind of like, Coinbase NFT came out. We talked about this a little on Monday where it came out and people are already not even talking about it. So it's obviously Yuga is a different beast. I don't think this is going to be like, I'm not betting on it being a fail by any means, but I think people talking about this as if it's this crazy smash, like you mentioned, if there's 100,000 of these plots, it's way more sell pressure that if something comes out that people want to sell, that's way more people trying to undercut each other. And the price movement can move very fast, and the rising is going to be slower than in the past. So those are just like the sort of bear case side of it, where, if you're buying a plot of land at 2 ETH, the floor might only be 3.5 ETH. Like it's not necessarily guaranteed 5x or anything like that. And so that's sort of going, full circle back to Packrip's question earlier. Like there's probably higher upside, higher ROI plays out there, but this one's probably safe as far as the downside risk goes if you're buying it at 1 ETH.
I would agree with everything you said. I mean, the entry price is so important to make any decision here. We can't say anything's a smash play without knowing the entry. Personally, if this is closer to 1, I think it's much higher likelihood of being a big success than if it's like at 3 ETH. At 3 ETH, I'm certainly going to be a little bit more worried about it, and would be more hesitant to fire on the gun, in the Dutch auction. But I will come back. Just my last thought on this is I was talking to a friend who said, we were talking about how it seems like everyone thinks this is a smash play. And, is that a cause for concern? And his response was, in NFTs, when everyone thinks it's a smash play, they're typically right because community sentiment is what drives all these projects.
Right. Once you start
at least
seeing
for
it,
near term.
the momentum. Yeah.
So, and I think that's powerful. I think it actually speaks really well to what
Bloomberg.
drives this market, right? It's not fundamentals and metrics, it's attention and hype. And of course there's more factors to it than that. But I mean, more likely than not, if everyone thinks this is going to be a smash, if everyone's got their ETH and ape ready to buy, then it's going to be a smash. And then my advice would be don't 100 IQ this thing, right? Just go with the simplest and most likely outcome and just kind of bet on that.
Yeah. And, that's sort of a good point because a lot of people, ape, when it was at $18, you're like, oh, can I wait until Saturday? Oh, then it's at $20. Ooh, maybe I should wait for it to come down. And it's like, well, it hasn't come down since then. So it's like, if you want to buy one of these plots of land, let's just say one, you want to get ape. Like, it doesn't matter what the current price of ape is, just lock in that you have some, because you don't want to go too late and then ape is $30 because they say something that's super bullish, or that the number of ape you need is lower and then people want to get 10 of each or something. So I just say that that's sort of what my take was earlier in the week. Just buy it right now because I know I want to buy it at some point. And what's the difference between $18 and $20? If you're buying 100 of it, it's $200 difference. But now it would have been $600 difference. So,
Right.
um, yeah, that's a good point. Like, just we always overthink these types of things, especially when it has to do with ape. I mean, I'm someone that sold every Bored Ape Yacht Club and Yuga Lab asset way too early. So
Mhm.
personally, I'm trying just to not do that this time. So good luck out there. We'll, as mentioned before, we'll be keeping those updates on luckytrader.com as they're flowing in. We're going to have basically like a live blog in a sense, where we have the main article that will continually update as the new information flows in. So definitely keep up with that. And good luck out there if you're trying to mint uh, into the Yuga Labs universe. The other side, we will be back here on Monday to hopefully be talking about what happened over the weekend and that it actually minted. You never know; it could get pushed off. Things like that always pop up with these types of things. So hopefully on Monday we'll be back in good spirits once again, and we'll catch you guys then.